It's Final Friday.
I asked you for someone who makes you think, and you said Sebastian de Oliveira, who is at Seb Colorization on Instagram. So that's SEB, and then the word colorization spelled the British way with an S. And so it may be obvious from his username, but explain what Seb Colorization does and why you like it.
Yeah, this is an unusual choice because when you asked me someone who makes you think, I thought of people on Twitter who write really deep, profound stuff. People are very political.
Most people pick that for this.
Oh
category.
yeah. I was really close, by the way, to picking Wendell Pierce, who is one of my favorite actors and just writes some powerful stuff on Twitter. But I felt like, everyone knows Wendell, not everyone, but if you don't know who Wendell Pierce is, you should. But anyway, I feel like most people know him from The Wire and a million other stuff. So I tried to think of something a little bit more unusual that, maybe so many people wouldn't have heard of. And then I thought, what really weirdly makes me think? I love when people colorize black and white pictures. I always love staring, especially even if I just see an old photo. Typically in old photos, people seem to look like they only exist in that era. You cannot imagine those people living anywhere but that era. And every so often you'll see somebody who looks weirdly contemporary in an old photo, and it's always kind of startling. And you just realize how alive these people were, and history becomes real. And there are a lot of people that color black and white photos, but most of them look fake to me. Most of them look kind of Technicolor. This guy is French, but he writes in English, and most of his pictures are in the US. And I don't know whether he's particularly fascinated by America or whether he just thinks he'll get more people following if it's in English. But he is incredibly good at coloring black and white photos over and over again. They look like somebody went back in time, took an HD photo and posted it. Wow. Even the texture on people's clothes feels like I can reach out and touch it. And very often I'll be looking at the picture and be mesmerized, and I'll just think, wait, 1917? I swear that feels like somebody just dressed up in these clothes and just staged this photograph. And so it really gives me, and I'll do it as a slideshow too. First you see the colorized photo, and then you see the original black and white, and then he'll do a close-up of the colorized photo.
Right, like some detail, some part of it.
Some detail, yeah, which is usually often the part I was trying to pinch zoom in on anyway, to see, usually it's the face, a close-up of the faces. The reason it makes me think is because it just, in those moments, I feel like I find those moments weirdly profound when I look at these people, and you really feel like you're looking at them through across time, and they feel so real and so frozen in the moment. And I start thinking about, what were they thinking in that moment? What was going on in their lives? Everything that led up to that photograph being snapped, everything that happened afterwards. I find that it weirdly does make it makes me ponder, not just think, but ponder these photos, especially when they're just kind of so startlingly well done. And I've never seen anyone who's that talented at doing. I kind of enjoyed them, like, oh, that's cool. Oh, wow, Lincoln in color, but it's I've never seen anyone that every time I'm just like, holy shit, that's incredible.
It kind of reminded me of, did you ever see that Peter Jackson documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old?
Yes.
Where he and the entire army of digital effects artists at Weta Digital took footage from World War I that was shot in weird frame rates and black and white and grainy. They colorized it and they made it look like modern footage. But what did you think of that?
Oh, it was too much. That was so incredible. It made me like World War I, which is something I normally have no feelings about. Except that was horrible, but nothing personal. I found it so emotional to watch that movie that I couldn't make my way through it, because I just felt so terrible for those guys, because I could imagine so well myself and what I have done in that situation. I just felt like, thank God I didn't have to go to World War I, which is not a thought I think I'd ever had in my life.
Yeah.
So, it was incredibly good. And he used some incredible sound effects too. I guess they did incredible painstaking research.
They figured out, they looked at the footage and it's like, okay, it's this specific type of tank. And then they recorded that type of tank, some surviving, artifact from 100 years ago. They went out to the field and recorded it because, of course, the original footage had no sound. So it's, and it's narrated. I think those guys were probably, they're old men. It sounds like they were interviewed by the BBC maybe in the 1960s. It was one of those things where,
people are always thinking, well, what generation is dying off right now? And quick, let's get their stories. And that seems to be how these guys all got interviewed, from what I could gather.
Yeah, but so it's interesting because there are a lot of historians who don't like the idea of colorizing photos or of updating the frame rate of old video. I found this quote. This is from a Reddit thread. This is a historian with the username Wote89, WOTE 89. And they say, the thing about old photos is that everything about the image is part of the information we can learn from it. Not just the picture itself and what it's a picture of, but how it was composed, what its medium was, the balance of lights and darks. It's all part of the document. And when you alter it, that's creating a new document, reflecting a conjunction between the past and the present. Does that, I don't know, do you agree with that? Does that change how you feel about, SEB colorization or other projects like that?
I agree with it, but I actually don't think it's a bad thing. My feeling is, yes, you have. Absolutely, you've created a new document.
Yeah.
But I think it's assuming people think, well, that's much better. Let's get rid of the old thing. If somebody was to believe that, that's problematic.
Right. So long as both still exist, though, it's fine.
To me, it's like a cover song of something. To me, it actually goes back to postmodern jukebox. You could do this absolutely brilliant version that you think, wow, weirdly enough, these both seem almost like they, these two songs in my mind are kind of equally good and valid and interesting. The relationship between the original black and white and what he's doing is like a postmodern jukebox and, the original music.
It's finding some new meaning in the original media, and it's not replacing the original media, yeah.
And I feel like as somebody who loves history, it's often frustrating to me, people who don't care about history. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like anything to make the past feel alive and to make people remember that these were real people just like us, and, I think is a good thing. Overall.
I 100% agree with that, yeah. That was Sebastian de Oliveira, who is at Seb Colorization on Instagram, and colorization is spelled with an S.